prepaid plan is, well, all you need. So, what are you waiting for? Switch and save at your local post office today. On Post Mobile. T's and C's apply. See onpost.com.
Come get carried away with life at Corteo by Cirque du Soleil. An extravagant spectacle featuring astonishing acrobatics. 3 Arena Dublin from the 8th of July. Due to phenomenal demand, an extra week added from July 14th. Cirque du Soleil. Magnifico. Tickets from $45.20 on sale now. Additional charges may apply. Corteo thanks their official partners, Skoda Auto and Air Canada.
VHI Healthcare have gone beyond insurance with specialist clinics and care just for our members. Join now for access to our Swift Care clinics, dedicated screening centres, the convenience of hospital at home, our paediatric clinic and a very handy health assistant app. To join, call today on 1890 444444 or search VHI. Terms and conditions apply. VHI Healthcare DAC trading as VHI Healthcare is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland and is tied to VHI Insurance DAC for health insurance in Ireland.
Limerick, gateway to the wild Atlantic way.
And home to Europe's finest hotel.
A short hop from Shannon Airport, calling at major US destinations.
Or stay put with an Irish coffee in the county that invented it.
Where the Americans will come for the 2026 Ryder Cup.
And where we Europeans will welcome them after we've beaten them.
Limerick, Atlantic Edge.
European embrace.
Discover your Limerick at limerick.ie.
Take a fresh look at Senator Windows. You're looking at more than superior quality, security and efficiency. You're looking at €500 instant cashback when you spend €5,000 or more on Senator's UPVC range of windows and doors. The €500 cashback offer must end 29th of February, so call Senator Windows now on 1850 774455 or visit senatorwindows.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
Applying for a Trinity postgraduate programme in creative thinking, innovation and entrepreneurship was a great decision. In just 20 weeks, I had a Level 9 qualification from Trinity College Dublin. And it's free, or up to 90% funded if you're in receipt of social welfare, a returner to the workplace or in employment. The course starts in March, so apply online now. Search Trinity on springboardcourses.ie.
Springboard Plus is co-funded by the Government of Ireland and the European Social Fund and part of the ESF Programme for Employability, Inclusion and Learning 2014 to 2020.
You ain't shit! I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
Well, fans can be the harshest critics, you know.
And they often are.
A wife is often the harshest critic of her husband.
I thought I was invincible. That's what you're trained to believe as a sports person.
There was 4 million people in Ireland who knew much more about managing football teams than I did. When it comes to music, I can spoof with the best.
Your sporting career is the best time you'll have, and you know you have to hang on to it for as long as you like because everything else is pretty crappy.
And this is not lies. Stephen Rothschild has never spoken to Jim McGuinness in his life.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 o'clock for our Ireland against England preview. 53106, the number for your text. I was speaking to Neil Tracy about a Space Jam in the news round. I haven't seen it. I have no idea what it is. John Duggan hasn't seen Space Jam. I can't believe it. Get on it, John, says Connor and Drumcontra. 5 o'clock, when the show is over, Connor, we'll get on it. He tells you also that Chelsea are on it. Chelsea won, Tottenham Hotspur 0 in the Premier League. Olivier Giroud, of all people, scoring. Could you believe that? Olivier Giroud scoring for Chelsea, the French World Cup winner. We're streaming live as well now, so you can also get in touch with us on our social channels, on Off the Ball at YouTube, on Twitter at Off the Ball, on Facebook. You can also listen to us on the Go Loud app. A double header for the Irish men's and women's teams in the Six Nations tomorrow, both facing England, the old enemy, both sides pursuing triple crowns. So the women kick off against their English opponents at Castle Park in Doncaster from 12:45. The men's fixture down for decision at Twickenham from 3. We wanted to put it out to listeners right now. How's it going to go tomorrow at Twickenham? What are the keys to beating England? Are you happy with Andy Farrell's team selection? Was bringing Bono to the team camp a masterstroke? What are your memories of Ireland versus England at Twickenham? Any fantastic trips you've been on? To share some of your stories on 53106, the number for your text messages. We'll concentrate on the women's game with Alison Miller after 2. But first of all, we'll concentrate on the men's match in the company of Alison and Darren Cave, the former Irish international and Ulster centre, on Skype. How are we doing, guys? Alison, you scored a hat-trick against England. You're the authority in all of this.
Yeah, it was actually in 2013, and it was the first time the Irish women's team had ever beaten England. So that was a great memory, and we went on to win the Triple Crown, the Six Nations, and the Grand Slam year. So that was a year I suppose, not to forget.
Did you swap jerseys after? Did you have the...
No, because we had to keep our jerseys.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
No, I didn't swap jerseys, but I don't think they would have wanted to swap anyway after that, because they would have been huge favourites at the time. And of course, we'd never had history of beating them, or probably even coming close to a victory. So yeah, that was a good one for the memories.
And did it feel playing England greater than anything else because it's England?
Yeah, there's always huge rivalry, obviously, because of the two countries and the history and the quality that the players that England have and the strength and depth that they have. But we've had, they've beaten us obviously a lot more than we'd beaten them. But there was always rivalry and tighter games as the years progressed after that win.
Darren, I believe you played at the World Cup warm-up game in 2015 at Twickenham. Is that right?
Yeah, I have some reasonably happy memories of playing against England through the age grade, but not so many happies that day. We shipped a few points, and so we're off on the wrong foot in this interview, I think, in terms of being overshadowed by Alison a wee bit there.
No, don't worry about it, Darren. We'll get you on the right foot. Just in terms of playing England, I remember going there in 2002 as a journalist, and we were absolutely swamped. Johnny Wilkinson was brilliant. I think if they get ahead, if they get that swing low, Sweet Chariot song going, it's their first game since the World Cup. We got to stay with them, I think, for the first while here.
Yeah, I don't actually think we fully know where this England team and this Ireland team are at. I do feel like if they play really, really well, if they start well, they're going to be hard to stop. A year ago, we thought Eddie Jones was crazy because of all these selections. It came to fruition in the World Cup. We thought he was a genius. And now we're back at square one, wondering why he's got Curry at number 8 again. He's got Jonathan Joseph on the wing. And there's probably a couple other bizarre selections in there missing off the top of my head. And Ireland... okay against Scotland, probably should have lost. Much improved against Wales, albeit a poor Wales team. I think ultimately we were quite fortunate that we started with 2 home games. Let's not forget England started with 2 games on the road with a 6-day turnaround. So there's a lot we're going to find out tomorrow.
I think what we do know, though, Alison, is that this has been a successful campaign because we're going to beat Italy. We won our first two games at home. Farrell's got a free shot against England or against France.
Yeah, I think it was really important that we got some wins, obviously, after the World Cup, and it was a new and fresh start. Like Darren said, we really improved against Wales. Good to see Conor Murray come back into form. I think he's going to be really important tomorrow if we want to play well. I think Eddie Jones, I suppose, he never does anything, I suppose, the way we'd expect or way another coach expects. He's gone for a 6-2 split, and he has 3 second rows on the pitch, which suggests that they might go out. Might go after our set piece, and he's also got 2 second rows on the bench, which means he can bring on a fresh front 5 and really go after set piece, which is something he might do. He's only got 2 backs on the bench, which isn't an issue really when you've got Ford and Farrell there. But I suppose it'll become interesting if there's any injuries to the backs, because he's got less of an impact in the second half then to bring on. But the collisions are going to be really important, and Ireland need to get a good start. Obviously, the 2 Vinopolas are a huge loss because they just bring such power and attrition to the game that it takes nearly 2 or 3 to bring them down. But on the plus side, I suppose, for England, they've got Tuilagi back, who's got a huge threat in the midfield. So it's going to be a good game, but I think his selections, obviously Eddie Jones, are interesting. He's got obviously Tom Curry at 8, who's not a huge ball-carrying threat, but obviously he's an out-and-out back rower that with himself and Underhill, they're going to be, a huge breakdown threat to the Irish team. So, but I think we've been playing well. I think there's renewed energy within this Irish team. It's great to see people like Andrew Conway really playing well. And I suppose we might see Ireland test out Joseph early on. He's not used to playing on the wing. And, maybe Eddie Jones looks at it like he's trying to get his best players onto the pitch. I don't know what the reasons for selection there is, but I think they'll test him early, and we'll see that.
Darren, as Alison is saying there, Joseph on the wing, his first start on the wing in 7 years. I know he played at times in the World Cup on the wing, like at times in games. You were a centre. How is it difficult will it be for him to adjust his mindset to play in that position?
It is a specialised position nowadays. It's not just that if you're a fast centre, you can throw a player on there. So it will be tough. Defensively, it's a complete different game, how he operates with his back three. We know Elliot Daly's very comfortable at fullback, but he hasn't played as much there for England recently. So how he connects with his midfield, off set piece, off scrum, off launch attack, and how he interacts with his back three, it is really, really different. And I do think Ireland will have opportunities to put the ball in the air, to manipulate the back three. We know Johnny Sexton and Conor Murray, they'll change direction, they'll put the ball in behind, they'll try and catch them out. If Elliot Daly's maybe in 115-metre channel and Joseph's a little bit out of position, we'll see them sweep back and put the ball in behind. And ultimately, he's been picked there because he's a good threat, ball in hand, and they'll try and get him going back and doing what he's not used at, which is going back into his 22, picking up the ball and clearing it, or going up in the air against Conway or Stockley or whoever it is. But I think to pick up on Alison's point, from an Irish point of view, I think it's brilliant that the Vunipolas aren't playing. Tuilagi, I was disappointed to see him selected, although as a rugby fan, I love him. But this Ireland team have struggled in 2019 with England's sheer power game. And as Alison alluded to, they picked a team that to go after the breakdown. That suits us. Ireland's back row at the breakdown, that is probably the best international back row in the world when you look at going after ball. The breakdown battle suits us. Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Fleer, CJ Stander, they'll get over the ball. We're happy to go toe-to-toe with Underhill and Curry at the breakdown. What we don't want is this absolute ruckus of bomb squadding and players, the big sort of ball carriers, sort of bullying us and throwing us around a bit.
Yeah, just some text in here on 53106. I think people are over-egging last year's Six Nations loss. Weather is to be wet and the front five are better. Both Vunipolas, as Darren was saying, they're a big help to us, them being out. Think we'll win. That's from Brian in Dublin. Kevin Doyle on Twitter. Hey, John, went over in 2018 for the Slam game. No ticket. After donning a homemade sign, we 4 of us in the game by kick-off. The locals were kept very quiet that day. Great fun in the Cabbage Patch and other local pubs, but train back into town was almost the best part. # sing song. I kind of really heartened Alison about Devon Toner. Like, the devastation of not being picked for the World Cup is then playing Pro 14 games. Nothing against the Pro 14, but it's not the World Cup, and you're a long winter ahead. And now tomorrow, with Ian Henderson not in the team for personal reasons, he's there in the second row against Maro Itoje.
Yeah, it could work out well for us having Toner in the line-out. He's obviously a player of huge experience, and that experience hopefully will show when he's on the pitch. And I think, you know, he'll be confident in his abilities to get a good performance and show why maybe he wants to get back there starting and to show his class over the years. So, you know, obviously it was very disappointing for him being left out of the World Cup, but it's a new squad now, it's under new management, so he'll be keen to impress when he gets the opportunity. And there's times in sport when you get your opportunities, and we often see that players get opportunities and sometimes they hold on to them, sometimes they don't. But it's interesting to see how he will perform. But he definitely won't be, he'll be a huge positive for him in the line-out, I think, tomorrow.
We got a goal in the Premier League game between Chelsea and Tottenham from Stamford Bridge with Ian Beach.
Chelsea 2, Tottenham 0, the perfect start to the second half for Chelsea, because with Tottenham struggling in attack, it's difficult to see how they might come back from this. Marcus Alonso scoring the goal. Chelsea with a long throw down the right wing, flicked onto Mason Mount, corner of the penalty area. He squared to Ross Barkley, who also squared it first time to Alonso, and he first time drove the ball left-footed into the bottom corner. Chelsea 2, Tottenham 0.
Thanks, Ian. Now, rugby coverage brought to you thanks to Vodafone. A team of us, everyone in. Darren, speaking about Jonathan Joseph there in the wings, Jacob Stockdale's been kind of speaking about his form, and he thinks he's actually in better form. He's maybe not scoring as many tries as he was a couple of years ago, but he feels like he's in better form. When you're not just getting over the line, how does it affect you mentally? What's your kind of view on Jacob's potential contribution tomorrow? That's potentially something he's saying to draw the attention back to the fact that he probably is playing better than what people think. I agree with the point he's making. I'm not sure you could argue he's in the form that he has been in previous Six Nations. I don't think he's at the minute in conversations around players of the Six Nations. But having said that, he's probably playing better rugby than people think he is. And he's such a quality operator. He's so lethal ball in hand that there will be a big moment from him again. It'll come. And hopefully tomorrow's the day where out of nowhere, be it an intercept,
be it one of those chip and chases. That will come from him because it comes to him so naturally. The important thing for him is that he keeps learning, keeps improving positionally with his grass field cover in defence of set piece, keeps improving in the air and his kicking game, all these other bits, all these other work-ons, because the flair and the ability to beat people is something that comes naturally to him.
Stopping Tuilagi. Henshaw did play very well against Wales. What is the secret? Does it expose us in other areas with Johnny May scoring like a try-scoring machine the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think when England, they're so physical, and if they win those collisions, I think then Ford can control the game really well, and then they can move the ball into the space. But I suppose I just want to go back to Stockdale. Having been a winger myself, I actually think it's interesting what he's saying, because I think it's a position that if you're scoring loads of tries, you're going to get loads of attention. I actually don't think he's playing poorly at all. I think he played quite well in the first 2 games. He doesn't need a huge amount of space for him to be dangerous. And he's a player that's capable of making something special happen, which we need to beat England tomorrow. Sometimes, having been a winger, there'll be times that you can be put into space, or you'll get an overlap and you can just run in a try, like Conway against Wales. Had that been the reverse in Stockdale, he would have been on scoring tries. But, very little separates sometimes. And I think the more players you're beating as a winger and the more tries, it can be quite infectious to your mentality. So I actually would agree that I don't think he got a bit of stick, I think, from people saying that he's not playing well. But I actually think he is playing relatively well. Obviously not to what he was doing the last year or two, scoring a try nearly every game. But that was nearly unattainable. He was scoring a try all the time. And it's like, can he keep this up? So, and as Darren said, he's going to keep working on those aspects of his game, his defence, his connection, with the back three, his aerial skills, his fielding of the ball, his cover. So they're all things. But I think he is an X-factor player, and he's capable of making something happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing him hopefully kind of find some of that try-scoring form that he can, and lifting the game even a little bit, and players getting him onto the ball, because I said he's a physical guy. If we can get him the ball in not a huge amount of space, he's very dangerous. But in terms of stopping Tuilagi, that is really important. And I think the more collisions that we can win, the more our back row can get into the game. If we're soaking our tackles, it'll be harder for our back row to get into the game and win those turnovers, which will be a huge part to our game. Our back row are great players, but we need to win the collisions.
Would you like to see Quayle Doris in there tomorrow?
I think, I have been harsh probably on Stander at times myself, as watching him play, but fair play to him since he was initially dropped, I suppose, for that game. He's really come on and he's improved, and there's a bit more to his game than that we had been seeing with just those tight in attritional carries. So I suppose Doris, he only had his 4 minutes, and he then had HIA, so where Stander has been playing and been playing well. So look, hopefully we can see what Doris can do off the bench, and he's such a young player that he's got a huge future ahead of him. So look, that's his selection, obviously, Andy Farrell, and I'm looking forward to seeing what both players can do. It's good to have that pressure from the bench, and it's a reason why maybe some of our players are playing well, because they've got the heat coming up them. So that's important too.
The finishers, as they call them. Darren, this is a weird thing, this Andy Farrell, Owen Farrell. I mean, will either of them feel awkward, or does professionalism just kick in now tomorrow, that it's father and son on opposing teams?
I'd say they're pretty used to it now, but it is a strange dynamic. When I was playing, my dad would have been hassling me all week, asking me, was I playing? When are you flying? When are you traveling? Blah, blah, blah. Make sure my tickets are sorted. All these kind of things. So I'm sure for those guys, it's very, very normal now. But, it is a very, very bizarre thing to think of the other members of the family, to think of their communication through the week. What do they talk about? Because they're a bit of an elephant in the room, So it is a bit of an interesting subplot. I'd say, to answer your question, it's something that, although they probably haven't been opposing that often, that they're both so professional at this stage that it's probably not that big deal for those two.
The Bono thing, Darren, coming into camp, I thought it was great. like he's a legend. He spoke for a long time apparently about Irishness, and he's still, you know, an icon of our country, whatever people's opinion of him is. Did much of that happen under Declan or Joe? And do you think it was a good thing? Do you think it will be a morale booster this week, or is this so prevalent now in sport, the psychology, that it doesn't really make a difference to what's going to happen between the lines tomorrow with Twickenham?
Yeah, it was something that happened a lot under Joe and Declan for a few reasons. Sometimes for inspiration, sometimes to find that 1%, sometimes just to break up how mundane a long campaign can be. I can only really speak for myself. I always enjoyed it when someone came in. Trying to sort of rack my brains. I remember Christy Moore coming into camp a few times. I remember Paul McGinley came in and gave a big presentation about the Ryder Cup and how, as captain, all the preparation that went into it and how he won. I remember we had an Irish historian who came in and was telling us about the history of Ireland and all these wee ways of looking for even 0.5%. So as a player, I really enjoyed it. I don't see a problem with it. I mean, Bono's one of the biggest names in the history of Irish entertainment, let's call it. And I think it's great that he's taken the time to go and visit the boys, and hopefully it gives them that wee extra bit of inspiration that could help get a result tomorrow.
Did Christy sing a song?
He did. He sang plenty of songs, and he even got a few boys to join in with him.
Are you one of them?
I wasn't one of them. No, I don't think he knew. I don't think he knew who I was. In fairness, like, so I kind of put the hand up, thinking I was the idiot when the requests were coming in from Christy Moore songs. I was the idiot in the corner going, somebody ask him to do Jockster Goes to Stuttgart. But the one he wouldn't have wanted done. But no, so I never got the chance to sing with Christy. So,
did you have many motivational people coming in?
Yeah, but they were always athletes.
Or were they all jumping on the bandwagon after you won the Grand Slam?
There was a lot of requests after the Grand Slam, all right, your phone was hopping. But we never had, like, I suppose, musicians or anyone famous. We always had famous people through sport. So we had Kelly Harrington in last year, the boxer. It was really good to hear her story, being another female athlete, and, you know, her training regime and what it means to her. And, you know, she was, I suppose, largely under Katie Taylor's shadow for a long time. And then has come out of that shadow and has become a world-class performer. So we would have had her, Annalise Murphy, we had the hockey girls. I would have people over the years that were generally probably female athletes. Now we've had some obviously male athletes as well, but I suppose with the women's we have less time together, so we wouldn't have had the same time in camp. But as Darren said, sometimes it was nice to have someone different and a different voice, bring a bit of variety to the camp. Something different. You know, you're obviously on highly schedulized days of training and meetings and video analysis. I mean, it's nice to hear a different voice, someone that's not within your camp. And, you know, sometimes you can actually allude to what they're saying and you're like, you know, I would have felt like that at times, or to hear that they have their doubts. And it was nice to hear other athletes' perspective at times, yeah.
Jakob Piper, the referee tomorrow, Darren, because sometimes it can be quite a bit loose when you referees. You know, the physicality will be important, how much he gets involved in disciplinary issues and that kind of thing. Have you had any experience of him? Do you have any view on it?
I know that when I was playing, you'd have spent, well, it's probably changed. Under Joe Schmidt, you spent more times than preparing under other coaches, but they will have looked at it. They'll have a bit of a profile on him. They'll know, you know, certain penalties early in the game he might give. Let's not be the team that gives the penalty for not rolling away in the first 2 minutes at scrum time. He likes to do this. He has a bit of a weakness here, so there. I think, I'm not sure it's going to have a big bearing on the games. When I was a player, I felt like it was very rarely the referee's fault. If you lost, it was a great soundbite and a great thing to defer from the fact that you hadn't performed as well as you could or should. So I've no doubt that he will have an impact in the game tomorrow. I'm not sure he will decide who wins the game, if that makes sense.
Dan Toohey, you used to play with him at Ulster, Darren, and he went on Twitter about his retirement. He was playing in France with Van, had a lot of issues with his fingers and with his arms in recent times. Did you see the tweet? have you a view on the like what he said, that kind of thing?
Well, yeah, I played Ireland age grade with Dan and played for years at Ulster. And my view of him as a player is that he was incredibly talented and probably unfortunate to have more caps for Ireland. He was sort of came at the end of the O'Connell-O'Callaghan era as Donnacha Ryan was playing, and those others starting to come through. I suppose in terms of how he retired, it was a bit different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Some of it was interesting. I thought it was interesting that he talked about his injury. A lot's sort of been spoken about recently with the whole sort of loyalty thing in rugby, and I sort of same with most issues. I kind of sit on the fence with it. I think that no one has ever been forced to play professional rugby. But at the end of the day, you are paid for a service to a club, and when you leave that club, the club will make a bit of an effort with you. But the clubs, there's only so much they can do for you. They cannot, offer jobs and look after every single ex-player ever to a ridiculous level. So I kind of see it from both sides. If somebody left a normal job of employment in Belfast or Dublin, it's the same thing. You're paid for a service, and nobody's forcing you to do it. So I see it from both sides.
And how have you adjusted yourself to retirement, Darren? Have you found it easy? Have you found it a difficult adjustment?
Yeah, I haven't actually found it that hard, because I think I was ready to go, even though I'm still only 32. I felt like I was ready to say goodbye to it. I felt like I'd sort of had enough, if you will, and I'm just so busy now that I don't have time to worry about that part of it. I became a dad for the first time in July, and
congratulations.
Thank you. That's harder than any rugby match I ever played in. I'm doing a bit of work with a foreign exchange company in London, and I'm doing a bit of podcasting and working on TV and games and on Off the Ball on a Saturday. Where would you rather be?
Where would you rather be, Darren? With us and with Alison here in studio as well. Darren, the keys to victory tomorrow, do you think we're going to do it? And if we are going to do it, to beat England and to win this Triple Crown, what are the keys to doing so?
The one thing I think that Andy Farrell will have tried to change about this Ireland team, and I do think we're starting to see it, is a level of physicality. I do think Ireland are known for physicality, but under Joe Schmidt, we were known for our tactical preparation, I think Andy Farrell has brought a bit more sort of Englishness to us in terms of robust carrying, sheer physicality at the contact zone. And that's what it's going to take to beat them. So I think that was Farrell's plan. I think we've seen it, particularly against Wales. And if we see it tomorrow, we have a chance. And again, I like it on the fence, so I'm going to sit on the fence. I think if England play to the best of their ability, we will lose. Having said that, I think we're capable of disrupting them and getting a result. So if ever you got a non-answer, that's it.
You're going to go for the draw then, Darren, that's right.
Yeah, draw.
Good man, good man. Well, Darren, thanks for joining us today on Off the Ball Saturday. Speak soon.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Darren Cave there, and Alison, you're going to stay with us after the break. We'll speak about the other games in the Six Nations today, but also the women's game against England in Doncaster tomorrow. 53106, the number for your texts. Stay with us.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
It's
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
And you're very welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5 o'clock. 53106 is the number for your text messages. Are you going to Twickenham tomorrow? Any tales of past trips you were on that might be entertaining for us? Or even tell us what's going to happen tomorrow. Are Andy Farrell's team going to win the Triple Crown? Maybe not expected at the start of the season that we would win the Triple Crown. Alison Miller has joined me in studio. Alison, a Grand Slam winner. You scored a hat-trick of tries against England. You beat New Zealand at the World Cup single-handedly. You were saying something very interesting just during the ads there to me about the way players consume now, younger players, how they consume information and feedback from coaches.
I suppose younger players are more visual nowadays with, I suppose, it's just the way things have changed. But I think there's a bit of a change. I hear in Abbottstown how they fix things. I suppose they do their video analysis and then they go straight onto the training ground, the indoor training ground, and then try and fix it there and then, which is a really interesting way of learning because I suppose you're fixing it there and then and you're changing and you're retaining then what you should be doing. So I think that's really interesting. And yeah, young people are visual, I suppose. Everything social media, Twitter, Instagram, that they suppose they have a different way of learning maybe than even me. I'm 35, so I would be very different to the younger players, how maybe you retain or take in information or analyse different things about your performance. Obviously, video analysis has always been there, but maybe the way about doing it, analysis and then putting it into practice is slightly different.
We were speaking to Darren Cave just before the break about his verdict on tomorrow. He can't really, he's swaying in the wind about calling this one. How are you calling this men's game tomorrow?
I'm going to be ultra positive here and go for an Ireland win.
The heart is speaking.
The heart is speaking. I usually go to have a different opinion than most people, so I'm just going to say we're going to win very narrowly, but I just think we've nothing to lose in terms of the last time we played England, we got absolutely beaten off the park. It's hard to know if Eddie Jones pulls a masterstroke with his selection or will it work, but it's going to be a good game, but I'm going to say they're going to win.
Yeah, I think there's something in the Eddie Jones thing. He hasn't got a contract until the next Rugby World Cup. He's only got 2 more Six Nations, if you believe his current contract. The press conferences have been very strange.
Yeah.
I think he's a man under pressure. I wonder, does that make the players unsettled? I'm sure they're professional. If they get back on the bike now tomorrow, like they're coming off one of the greatest performances in English rugby history, which actually had no consequence.
Yeah.
They beat New Zealand and then they lost that final to South Africa. There is a bit of hangover there. It's fascinating. They could blow us off the park tomorrow, or it could be very close. I can't see us winning by 10 points. We generally don't tend to win at Twickenham by that score. But we do have a free shot. I would agree with you. We also have a free shot up at Doncaster, 12:45, the women's team going for the Triple Crown against England. But there has been a bit of a gulf emerging in the last few years since you beat England to win the Grand Slam in 2013 and now in 2020 between the way Irish women's rugby is and the way English women's rugby is.
Yeah, I suppose the last time an Irish women's team has beaten England is 2015. We won the Six Nations as well, and I suppose there was a very close game in 2016 in Autumn International, 2 points victory for England in the very last play of the game. So they have changed how they do things. They are a full-time professional team, which they started that in 2017 and obviously lost the World Cup final to New Zealand, who are also professional. So they have huge strength and depth in the amount of girls that are actually playing rugby in England, but also their Tyrrell's Premiership. It's professionally run, so the coaches and the S&Cs and nutrition, they're all paid. I was actually visiting a friend during the week and I got first-hand experience of one of these clubs' works. I was blown away at how unbelievably professional it was. English girls then that are contracted are paid obviously and they're trained full time. So our girls are, I suppose, very similar to a modern day elite GA player, that they work full-time jobs. They manage their training early in the morning, so they'll be up at 5:30 for a gym session at 6. They'll go to work. They'll have to do their own conditioning runs or with the groups. I always did my own training on my own because I lived in Carlow. So and then our girls will come into weekend camps and do their work together. So our girls are essentially working a full-time job and then trying to compete against the English girls who are paid and are professional and are getting a lot of rest and recovery, which is vitally important. They also have some world-class operators. I played in the game last year against England and we got beaten
51-7.
51. It was in my 10 years, it was the biggest defeat that I ever had.
So did you immediately know they've bulked up here, or their professional sphere and the system is immediately helping them? Or could you put it down to other reasons?
Well, I think the Irish team were in a very different place than they are now. So I suppose prior to or after 2017 World Cup, there was a huge exodus of players that retired, which always happens after a Women's World Cup, because no one is on contracts, you're not playing professionally for clubs, it's not your profession. So generally they will retire after a World Cup. So 2018, there's some players stayed on, like myself, for a year or two. But then 2019, then I suppose it's a lot of new players coming in with, inexperience, not saying their ability wasn't there. I suppose it's just between them being professional and then the Irish women being, a lot of new players. But this year then, they've really picked up their performances, and from watching, it's hugely improved. They have some very good young girls coming through, such as Bava and Parsons.
Who's doing her leaving, who won't be playing tomorrow.
Who's doing her, and it's disappointing because I think she's this real X-factor player that can make something happen out of nothing. Like, she's that capability.
But she would have been only in her maybe early teens when you were winning that Grand Slam, so maybe you were an inspiration.
Maybe, and you hope that we were an inspiration to people, because...
So what's the next step? I mean, do we have the player pool in Ireland? Do we have the infrastructure? I mean, the RFU probably do have the money. Do we have the foundation to have a similar style of model of that English do or the French
there would be so RAL, which I am playing today, Malone, is very different than their Tyrrell's Premiership and how it's run. We train twice a week, and that'll be that. And obviously the coaches that are coaching us have full-time jobs, so they're doing a fantastic job. There's a different way that we can do it. We have such talent out there. I myself came from the lowest division club that you could come from. So I'm a firm believer that there is talent, untapped potential gems playing very low standard of rugby, especially in rural areas where the girls come from GA or soccer, and they might have played county football, or they were good athletes and they just take up rugby, but they might not be on the radar because they're not playing the highest level. So I do believe they're out there. As I said, there's a lot of talent coming through, such as Dorothy Wall. She's 19. There's Judy Bobbitt, who's 19, I think, or 20, I'm not sure which she is, playing in the second row tomorrow. Linda Duggan, who is an absolutely fantastic inspirational story, came to Ireland when she was 9 from Cameroon, has such athletic potential. She's genetic, we will say freak, I think. She plays with me in Old Belvedere. And, there is some top-class performers in that Irish team, but they're ultimately playing against players that are full-time. So, what I would love to see is I've played, obviously, sevens rugby as well, and we were, I suppose you would call us semi-professional. We trained every day. And I think there could be a scenario where we could contract a core group of 15 players. We have some really talented girls on that team, but I mean, you can imagine if they're training every day, the skills will improve, they become better players than they already are. So that's an option, I would think. I think you just have to be imaginative about it. You have to be a game changer. We talk a lot about the 2020 campaign in women's sport, but we have to get behind it. If we weren't going to go with that approach, we could possibly have provincial hubs where the girls get support from the provinces, if that was an option. I don't see why it couldn't be, where they will work on their skills and nutrition and player development during the week within the individual provinces, and maybe come together in camps. So that's an option, but we certainly have the talent. We might not have the huge depth that England have because they have more girls playing, but we have talent out there that we need to be more imaginative about how we find the talent, how we get it into the game. And I think the Six Nations is a huge profile tournament for both the men and women. And I think if you went down to Energia Park for the first 2 games, even in the storm, there's huge crowds coming in. So this team are hugely visible.
Also seen that in women's soccer as well.
Yeah.
It being on terrestrial television.
So, that team is hugely visible. So what better way to, I suppose, get more girls playing, maybe generate sponsorship, sustainable revenue sponsorship through the game by being able to go toe-to-toe with these professional teams within the Six Nations or within a World Cup, and potentially winning another Six Nations or a Grand Slam, or getting to a semi-final of a World Cup and being up there with those teams. Because I genuinely believe that there's players out there that are capable. We just have to be more imaginative about how we do it. So I suppose in terms of Sunday, the girls will be going in as massive underdogs, which I think they should lap that up and let England soak up all the pressure. They're the professionals. They're the ones that are expected to win. And I think we've seen some really great rugby from the Irish girls. Such a massive improvement from last year. And we've seen some really nice play. So I think if the Ireland girls can play the type of rugby that they're capable, but bring in, huge heart, physicality, honesty on the pitch, some bravery, and make England's life as difficult as they can, you know what, a shock can happen. That's the beauty of sport. You'll see.
Whereas when you went in 13, did you expect to beat England? Did you feel like you had a better chance than you would have had a year ago?
You see, we went in and we knew how good they were. We had respect for them. They were a good team, and we were playing against world-class performers, some who are still playing today. But I think we went in with a real... we believed in our ability. We had some brilliant players. We had people such as Lynn Cantwell, who was an unbelievable player, Joy Neville, Fiona Coughlin, people like Siobhan Fleming that's not really talked about because she was a brilliant player, Grace Davitt, Tanya Rosser, all these players that I suppose bided their time losing for many years. And then other players came in, I suppose, Niamh Briggs came in a little bit later, myself, and added value, I suppose. And it was a long time coming, and there was a lot of work done by players that didn't win that Grand Slam. But we went in that day not afraid of them and just, are going to make their life difficult. And we won 25-0. We didn't even let them score. So, the game has changed in ways, but also there's still the same players playing. And the game has changed because the game of rugby has changed in general, even with the men. Defences are different, and, there's, I suppose, the offside is something that bothers me, but I suppose it's something now that is kind of not policed the way it should be. And so those are all making less space in the modern game. But England have some world-class operators, I suppose, in Scarlett 13, McLean at 10, very fast winger Breach and Dow. They have a huge pack. They're going to bring huge physicality.
So you expect them to win?
They are the favourites.
Okay. But it's been a good campaign.
It's been a great campaign, and we've had some great performances from Neopu and Considine and Cleena Maloney. So, look, I just think if they go make life difficult for them, throw everything at it, throw the kitchen sink, as they say, make it really difficult, that's sport, and upsets can happen. So we're praying for that.
We'll definitely be praying. I think what's really interesting, the Elite J player, that's very much something we should be returning to, because that's a very interesting way of putting it.
Lifestyle is similar,
But also, I think what you said, Alison, is about the names. Niamh Briggs, Lynn Cantwell, Fiona Coughlin. We know all these people, and hopefully we'll know the players now of 2020 and 2021. Thanks so much for coming in today on Off the Ball Saturday with John Duggan until 5 o'clock. What's in your mind when it comes to football? Do you have a question for our experts, Damien Delaney, Daniel McDonnell or Johnny Ward? What do you want to get off your chest about the beautiful game? Spurs have pulled one back against Chelsea, 2-1 to Chelsea in the Premier League. 53106 for your texts. Now, after the break, I'll be speaking to Brendan Doyle, who's travelled a very interesting path in life, which he hopes will culminate in an appearance for Team Ireland at the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. Just to let you know in advance, it does contain sensitive content, but we do think it's an important piece, and it is worth a listen. Stay with us.
Off the Ball on News Talk. Screen Time with John Farty.
This week on the show, Oscar-nominated director Todd Haynes on his new whistleblower movie, Dark Waters, starring Mark Ruffalo. We review this week's new releases in the